Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Joke Rogers here in Lagos. We start off in Mali, where the military junta is postponing presidential elections, which were previously scheduled for February. A government spokesman, Colonel Abdullahi Maiga, says the elections, which should return the country to civilian rule, will be held separately from parliamentary polls. He added that technical reasons, including issues linked to the adoption of a new constitution and review of the electoral laws, are responsible for the delay. The junta had initially proposed the elections for 2026, moving them to 2025, and finally fixed in the polls for February 2024 after pressure from the West African bloc, ECOWAS. Over in Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema has sacked his information minister, Chushi Kasanda, in a mini cabinet shuffle announced today on Monday. Cornelius Mwita, the ruling United Party for National Development spokesman, who doubles as Southern Province Minister, replaces Ms. Kasanda. President Hichilema also named Ron Wambawa as the country's Auditor General. According to a statement from the presidency, the changes reflect the president's ongoing efforts to enhance governance, improve service delivery, and promote national development in Zambia. And Burkina Faso's military junta has suspended the French-language news magazine Jeune Afrique, accusing it of publishing untruthful articles. The junta released a statement blaming the publication for seeking to destroy the credibility of the armed forces and accusing it of manipulating information to spread chaos. The accusations are connected to two recently published pieces reporting discontent in the military. The magazine's suspension is the latest in a series of actions against French-language media since Burkina Faso's military took over rule last year. Jeune Afrique has not responded to the accusations just yet. And the Director of Strategic Stabilization Advisors and a Niger expert, Annelise Bernard, is convinced that France's exit from Niger is a matter of time and the West needs to rethink its relationship with Africa to remain relevant. This follows French President Emmanuel Macron's announcement that France will withdraw 1,500 military troops at the end of the year. France's exit, which comes after weeks of pressure from the junta and popular demonstrations, is likely to exacerbate Western concerns over Russia's expanding influence in Africa through the mercenary force Wagner. The French ambassador is expected to leave the country soon, with Nigerian military and police currently surrounding the embassy.
France has already left Mali and Burkina Faso, so when the CNSP, the junta in Niger, had requested that France also leave Niger, I think there was a little bit of a ticking time bomb there in terms of when that was actually going to happen. It wasn't really a question of if, but rather when. The problem is that these three countries have come to terms with the fact that they are not okay with the way that France went about. It's almost 10 years at least of a counterterrorism mission there. Whether their reason for this notwithstanding, it's clear that they're all kind of in lockstep in terms of their approach towards France. So it's not exactly surprising the way in which they have dug their heels in with the growing anti-French sentiment and the very, very loud popular support for the junta did not exactly end well for them. And that's kind of why we're seeing them kowtowing to the CNSP's demands and bowing out now. What this means for the future is obviously not fully clear, but I think it will have an impact on the way that the junta also reacts and responds towards other Western partners in the region. That said, hopefully France can continue to navigate its relationship with West Africa by and through other partners like the US and other European partners that still remain there. I think these countries are going to have a huge security vacuum that they're facing. We're already kind of getting a preview of what might come down the pipeline for Niger with what's taking place right now in Mali. And I think that we should expect significant spillover of the jihadist expansion in Mali into Niger, something that we haven't seen in the past year specifically. I think we can anticipate that there will be significantly more attacks and more violence, both by the Islamic State Sahel, but also by JNIM.
On the second day of his trip to Kenya, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin visited the Manda Bay airfield in Lamu County. He was introduced to troops from the United States and Kenya who are stationed at the base. The Kenya Defense Forces military base is being used by U.S. armed forces to provide training and counterterrorism support to Kenyan troops. Mr. Austin is on his first tour of Africa since coming into office.
I wish to thank you all, both Kenya and U.S. troops, for your service to our country, to our countries. Your sacrifice is the reason that we are able to enjoy peace and freedom.
Now, you are a model, as I look at you today, you are a model of interoperability. You're working side by side every day, taking care of each other, supporting each other, and you're working on some very important issues of security that satisfy address both of our interests, Kenya and the United States. And so I'm really, really grateful for the teamwork, for the hard work, for the sacrifices that you make each and every day.
To humanitarian matters now, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs is seriously concerned about the persistent cases of gender-based violence, particularly in conflict-affected provinces of Ituri, North Kivu, and South Kivu in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Briefing journalists in New York, spokesperson for the Secretary General, Stefan Dujarric, said between January and June of this year, 35,000 survivors received care. Tragically, for every case reported, there are several more unreported incidents.
Congo says that it is seriously concerned about the persistent cases of gender-based violence, particularly in conflict-affected provinces of Ituri, North Kivu, and South Kivu in the country's east. Between January and June of this year, 35,000 survivors received care. The actual number of survivors is likely to be much higher, as only a fraction of them are reporting seeking support. The majority of survivors in the DRC are women and girls, underscoring the urgent need to particularly strengthen their protection. Despite the gravity of the scope of gender-based violence in the country, programs related to it are only 18% funded, which limits survivors' access to services.
We'll stay with humanitarian affairs matters. The United Nations says it has no choice nor freedom but to intensify efforts towards ensuring relief in humanitarian crisis in Nigeria, with a demand being made on them by the federal government through the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation in the bid to eradicate poverty and curb the humanitarian crisis in the country. This was stated by the Coordinator, UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief, Mr. Martin Griffiths, at a side event organized by the Nigerian government to draw world leaders' attention to the need to address human and climate-inducing displacement and challenges in Nigeria at the 78th United Nations General Assembly in New York.
We have in the humanitarian community in the world a new force of nature. You know who. And she's gonna leave us no choices, no freedom. She's gonna make us work hard. It's gonna be like high-level week every week. Dr. Betta. I'm proud of Dr. Betta for another reason.
And as Nigeria prepares to mark her 63rd independence anniversary, the federal government has restated its resolve to make the celebrations low-key. According to the Secretary General of the Federation, Mr. George Akume, this is because of the difficult economic realities in the country. He stated this during a press conference kicking off activities to mark the week-long celebration.
Independence Day is a very historic event in the history of any country, and we in Nigeria are no exception. We are fully prepared for celebration, but for obvious reasons, it's going to be low-key. But we're wishing Nigerians the best of luck, and I want to assure them that better days are coming, pretty soon too. This is going to be low-key. We are not going on fantastic jamboree in the the Eagles Choir, and other locations. It's a time for reflection. It's a time for all of us to think very, very deeply about us as a people and the journey forward. And this journey is being charted appropriately by the captain of the ship.
Well, in a mass cull in Tanzania, more than 5 million invasive quelea birds have been killed. The birds had invaded more than 1,000 acres of rice farmland in the Manyara region in north of the country, causing extensive losses. Officials spent more than 4 days using drones to spray the swarms of birds with the herbicides. The birds are capable of destroying more than 50 tons of crops every day and usually harm grains such as rice and wheat. In 2021, the UN's Food and Agricultural Organization estimated that $50 million worth of crops are lost to the birds each year, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa. And coming up after the break, Egypt's economic crisis affects religious holiday celebrations. Details in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. 4 boys have been electrocuted in a pool of water after a devastating storm swept across the South African province, causing extensive damage and flooding, as authorities are still searching for several other missing people. Roads, bridges, and other infrastructure were damaged, and some areas are inaccessible, with many roads still considered unsafe. The local government has referred to the storm as a disaster, suggesting that the full extent of the damage will only become apparent once the storm has subsided. The South African Weather Services has issued an orange level 9 warning, indicating the possibility of further flooding as the weather system moves east across the country. Still in South Africa, authorities are intensifying biosecurity measures to control a severe avian influenza outbreak that has so far killed 2.6 million chicken across the country. According to the Department of Agriculture, 5 of the country's 9 provinces are affected by the 50 HPAI-H7 and 10 HPAI-H5 subtypes of the virus. It added that the process of getting a vaccine has been fast-tracked because of the inherent risk of the disease spreading to humans. Gauteng province is hardest hit by the virulent HPAI-H7, while the Western Cape is grappling with the majority of the HPAI-H5 outbreak. South Africa's largest poultry producer, Astral Foods, warned last week of a shortage of eggs and poultry meat in the coming months due to the bird flu outbreak and impact of power cuts on the poultry industry. Let's get more on this. We're joined by Channels TV South Africa correspondent Innocent Semosa. Hello, Innocent.
A very good evening to you, Joke, and our viewers around the world.
Yes, so this seems like to be a double whammy for South Africa. Tell us what the situation is with the flooding. Have people been found alive? Are there more casualties being reported?
Indeed, Joke. We talking here tonight, me and you, with news that are very devastating, for lack of a better term. 8 people have died, including 4 kids, 4 children. We understand that they've been electrocuted because of the storm that wreaked havoc in the Western Cape. And also we understand that there are 3 people who are missing at the moment. And the Premier of Western Cape, Alan Winde, he was on scene this morning. In fact, he urged citizens to basically use the call center, in fact, for them to understand which part of the province is safer to go. And he urged them to also delay some of the activities, if they can, because of, the infrastructure is damaged. They cannot be able to get to work. Some cannot be able to get to school because of this storm that took place in the Western Cape. But we also understand, as you've mentioned, that the Weather Service has issued a warning on Sunday, level 9 for that matter. So today, kids were supposed to go to school. 16 schools, Joke, are affected because of this particular storm, so they could not go to school. So we understand right now that authorities are working, they're telling us that they're working around the clock to ensure that they basically find those 3 people who are missing. And I'm told that the damage will run to millions of rands to basically restore some parts of the city in the Western Cape, Joge.
And how far apart are the flooding incidents and avian flu?
Well, there's still investigations at this point in time. We don't want to speculate, but we understand that there has been some research around that, and some, people in the health sector have been really predicting that maybe this could have been the spread, also the storm could have been the spread of this avian flu. But we don't want to jump into conclusions, as I've indicated, that there is indeed a research that has been conducted by the Department of Agriculture in partnership with the Department of Health. So to really find out what could have been the cause of the spread of this particular avian flu. But as you've mentioned, rightly mentioned in your intro, Joke, that Gauteng is one of the province that is hit the hardest with this HPAL H5 or H7 rather of this avian flu, with 35 cases, and also the Western Cape is the one with the high number, and also there's the floods also with the 60 cases, but this one is a different type with the HPAL H5, followed by KwaZulu-Natal province with 7 cases. But we understand, Joke, that the Department of Agriculture has, urged farmers to essentially report any symptoms that might look like avian flu to relevant authorities. So that's where we at the moment. We don't know whether or not it's because of the floods, it's because of the bad weather that we have this particular avian flu. It really remains to be seen, since investigations are still continuing into that, Joge.
And 2.6 million birds, we understand. That's a huge number. Is the government talking about, culling any more birds at this time?
100%. It's a huge blow. You and I can agree that it's a huge blow to the Department of Agriculture that is still trying to, recover. Every sector is still trying to recover from COVID-19. So it's a huge blow. It's a big blow, I must say. Words cannot really come close to how much this will affect the agricultural sector. But we heard there from the spokesperson of the department, Mr. Reginobo, announcing that, in fact, they are working on a vaccine, as you've indicated also, that they're working on fast-tracking the vaccine. But the farmers who will get the vaccine, we now know that they have to have a good biosecurity system in their farms, and also they have to be given a go-ahead from the Department of Agriculture to actually get that particular vaccine. So that's where we're at the moment. But in terms of really reimbursing or giving some farmers, relief, it really remains to be seen again whether or not government will be generous. But we know that the fiscus is also under pressure. The GDP has not been doing well. Different departments have been going to the fiscus, to Treasury, asking for more funds. So I guess that will be a little bit, it's going to be tricky if whether or not government will, give them. But I understand that some of these farmers, Joke, they do have, ways to actually get reimbursed that money through the insurances that they've joined and other means that they've joined, as a group of farmers. But we know now that the ones that will get the vaccine, Joge, is those who have a good biosecurity in their farms.
Do you have an update on how soon these vaccines will arrive?
For now, we do not have an update, but I guess you and I can agree that before a vaccine has been administered, there has to be a legislature process that has to go. They have to pass it through, the legislature to allow it to actually go through. And sometimes legislature takes time to pass laws simply because of the regulations that has to go with what type of vaccine, and are they charging government more money in terms of administering those vaccines? So it's a long process. As it stands, we do not have a time frame of when they will definitely allow these vaccines to be administered in and around different to be administered to farmers. So we that's where we're at the moment, but we're hoping that it's gonna it won't take long, given the fact that we do not have much time. We don't want to cull more chicken because we're simply moving closer to festive season. Many farmers would really want to use those dividends to basically, get back to making more revenue and contributing to the GDP of the country, Joaquin.
Many thanks again, Innocent.
Thank you so much, colleague.
Let's move along now. Zuleka Mandela, granddaughter of South Africa's first democratically elected President Nelson Mandela, has died of cancer at the age of 43. In a statement on Instagram, her family announced that she had passed away on Monday evening, surrounded by friends and family. In recent years, she had become well known for detailing her cancer treatment and also being open about her history of drug addiction and depression, as well as the fact that she had been sexually abused as a child. Last year, she confirmed that she had cancer in her liver and lungs. It then spread to other organs. She was being treated as an outpatient, but was admitted to hospital just over a week ago. Ahead of the Salah celebrations, Egyptians are complaining of high prices of sweets popularly eaten to mark the occasion. Maulid al-Nabi is usually marked with celebrations by Muslims around the world. The cities are often decorated and many people hand out sweets to children. In Cairo's bustling streets, special sweets and decorations usually fill the traditional markets around this holiday period. But this year, with a crushing economic crisis, producers, sellers and customers say the prices of raw materials have increased due to the currency crisis, leading to a decrease in demand. Inflation in Egypt has surged to record highs, and deep-rooted economic problems have been exposed by a chronic shortage of foreign currency since early 2022. That's Network Africa today. Thank you for watching. I'm Joke Rogers.